Nestled deep in the Hampshire countryside, Bramshill House looms as a relic of another time. Its sprawling estate, with ivy-covered walls and shadowed gardens, is beautiful, yet unnervingly silent, as if nature itself dared not disturb its slumber. For centuries, Bramshill House has been notorious as one of England's most haunted mansions, its legends whispered among locals with trepidation. At the heart of its spectral lore is the tale of the Black Nun, a vengeful spirit whose sorrow and rage seem etched into the very stone of the manor. The stories tell of a young woman betrayed by love, left to wander the halls in eternal mourning. Witnesses have reported chilling encounters, faint sobbing in the dead of night, a figure cloaked in black drifting through corridors, and a cold, suffocating presence that leaves even the bravest trembling. For a group of paranormal investigators, Bramshill House is the perfect stage for their most ambitious project yet, a documentary exploring the legend of the Black Nun. But what begins as an attempt to document the unexplained quickly turns into a descent into unspeakable horror. The team of 4 arrived at dusk, the orange glow of the setting sun casting long shadows over the estate. Leading the group was Marcus, a seasoned investigator whose obsession with the supernatural bordered on reckless. Beside him was Clara, a historian with an encyclopedic knowledge of England's haunted locations. Jake, the tech wizard, carried an array of gadgets, infrared cameras, EMF detectors, and motion sensors. Finally, there was Sophie, the skeptic, whose role was to provide a grounded perspective. As they approached the grand, iron-studded doors, Clara shared the tale of the Black Nun. She was a novice nun, she began, her voice low, promised to the church but seduced by a nobleman who lived here centuries ago. When he betrayed her for another, she was left heartbroken and disgraced. Some say she cursed the house before taking her own life. The air grew colder as Clara spoke, as if the house itself was listening. Jake hesitated before unlocking the door. "Let's just hope she doesn't mind us staying the night," he joked, but his nervous laugh betrayed his unease. Inside, the house was a labyrinth of decaying grandeur. The air smelled of mildew and something faintly metallic. Dust motes floated in the dim light from their flashlights. Ornate chandeliers hung from the ceilings, their crystals dull and lifeless. The group set up their base in the grand hall, a cavernous room dominated by a massive fireplace. As night fell, the equipment hummed to life. Cameras were placed at strategic points and motion detectors lined the hallways. It didn't take long for the first anomaly. As Jake adjusted a camera in the dining room, he felt a sudden chill. His breath turned to mist, and the hair on his arms stood on end. He froze as a faint, melodic humming echoed through the room. "Did anyone else hear that?" he whispered into his radio. The others rushed in, but the room was silent once more. Sophie rolled her eyes. Old houses creak. It's probably just the wind. But Jake wasn't convinced. Neither was Clara, who pointed out that the Black Nun was often heard humming hymns before she appeared. By midnight, the team had gathered unsettling evidence. Faint whispers caught on audio, sudden spikes in EMF readings, and unexplained cold spots. But it was Sophie who had the most chilling experience. Exploring the upper floor alone, she entered a bedroom frozen in time. The bed was neatly made, the mirror cracked, and a Bible lay open on the nightstand. As she approached the mirror, her flashlight flickered. Then she saw it, a figure in the reflection. Dressed in black, her face obscured by a veil, the woman stood motionless behind Sophie. A cold hand seemed to brush her shoulder. Spinning around, Sophie found the room empty. She bolted back to the group, her skepticism shattered. "She's here," Sophie stammered, her face pale. Driven by Sophie's encounter, Clara dove into the house's history, poring over old journals and letters they'd found in the library. The story of the Black Nun was darker than they had imagined. She hadn't simply taken her own life. She had been walled up alive in the cellar by the nobleman who feared her wrath. Her death had been slow and agonizing, her cries echoing through the stone walls. "Her spirit isn't just mourning," Clara whispered. "It's seeking vengeance." As the group descended into the cellar, the atmosphere grew oppressive. The walls seemed to close in, and the faint sound of scratching filled the air. Jake's flashlight flickered, and then they saw it, a handprint, dark and wet, appearing on the wall. The night descended into chaos. Cameras captured shadowy figures darting through the halls. Doors slammed shut on their own. A chilling wail echoed through the house, growing louder and more anguished. Marcus, determined to communicate with the spirit, conducted a séance in the grand hall. At first, there was silence. Then the table shook violently, and a guttural voice rasped, "Leave or suffer." The group was frozen in terror as the room plunged into darkness. When the lights returned, Marcus was gone. Desperate to find Marcus, the remaining three searched the house. They found him in the chapel, kneeling before a shattered altar. His eyes were wide with fear, his lips muttering incoherent words. Behind him stood the Black Nun, her veil lifted to reveal a face twisted with anguish and fury. Her hollow eyes locked onto Clara. "You must suffer as I suffered," she hissed. The apparitions surged toward them. Clara screamed as an icy wind knocked them to the ground. The team fled, dragging Marcus with them. In their haste to escape, they stumbled upon a hidden room behind the cellar. Inside was a skeleton, draped in tattered black fabric, its bony fingers clawing at the walls. Clara realized the truth. The Black Nun's spirit could not rest until her remains were properly buried. They gathered the bones, reciting prayers as they carried them to the garden. But as they laid her to rest, the ground trembled, and the air filled with a deafening scream. The team escaped Bramshill House at dawn, shaken but alive. Weeks later, they reviewed their footage. In the final shot, as they left the house, a figure stood in the window, a woman in black, her veil lifted, her hollow eyes staring directly into the camera. The video cut to static. The Black Nun was still there, waiting for her next visitor.